Hey, Jen, thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk about member benefits for associations, specifically the educational side of that. What's working out there in the world? What's not working? What does the future look like? Professional development as a topic. What do associations need to be thinking about today? That's kind of the realm we're going to be talking about, right?
Mm.
So I want you to definitely tell everyone about you and your background, but I like to just kind of jump in with a question to start. So let's just keep it high level. I mean, tell me about the state of educational member benefits in the association world, like right now, based on your background and experience. What are you seeing out there right now?
So, associations know that education matters. It matters to the associations and it matters to the members. Um, what a lot of these associations have done to stand up and really meet that need is they have established partnerships with education institutions, or they've stood up their own certification ecosystems internally. And what that typically looks like to a member when they're attempting to meet that need is a website page with logos and maybe a discount code with some course descriptions.
Yeah, right. I'm with you. And I want to dig deeper into that too, but let's just take a minute real quick. Let the folks know who you are, what your background is, what we're talking about here.
Sure. So, my name's Jen Goode. I run a company called EDUTrust Network. We help associations across the US really stand up education benefits that meet the needs of their members. I've spent the last 16 years of my career focused on helping adult students find the right program across all types of different institutions across the US, really serving non-traditional adult students.
Yeah. And it's just such a cool thing. I mean, there's so much talk about technology and AI and all these things, but like this is like a at the root level. You know what I mean? This is about advancement, professional development, education. And as associations, I mean, this is really what they're about, advancing the industry. And the way you do that is by helping educate the folks that are in the industry and making it stronger, retaining them, not just in your association, but within the industry. And you can do that through education. So I'm a huge fan of what EduTrust does for sure. I think it just makes a lot of sense for associations. But with that in mind, you said at the top, associations do understand education's important, and we know that inherently. But like, where do you think the promise of that is sort of falling short right now? In other words, you might, like you said, you might have a bunch of logos or something on your website, but
Mhm.
like, where is it kind of falling short based on what you know the market, really needs out there?
Sure. And really, in all fairness, I don't think anyone's really doing it really well right now. The associations are putting out, relationships that they've established with universities and colleges that can, broadly help shape what's next for an association member. And I think that that gap that we see is the difference between what that looks like at a really high level. Like,
Hmm.
I'm an HR association and I'm going to create some logos for institutions that'll give you a discount to get an advanced degree in HR. But associations are, and really a lot of organizations have been unable to meet those adult members where they are to help them close that gap. There's tens of millions of adults across the US that have some college experience but no degree. And they've gone out into the workforce and they've hit a ceiling. And until associations and organizations can meet those students where they are and on a more one-to-one basis help meet them where they are and help them address the obstacles that they have and moving forward with a solution will continue to fall. And the problem gets more significant every day because the infrastructure and the rate at which industries and jobs are changing is, it's speeding up every single day. And so the gap between what these prospective students need and what they're able to sort of sort out on their own is getting bigger every day.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And You touched on the fact that associations can potentially do some things on their own, and there are some certification boards that's all they're about, and we can sort of understand that. And there's also learning management systems, which is the technology that allows you to plug in these courses and all of that kind of thing. So if there's an association out there listening right now and they're saying, well, we have a ton of stuff out there and we even have certifications as well. So why do we need this idea of a degree or advanced degree as part of our portfolio of offerings?
Sure, that's a great question. I think, it does depend on the association, but many of them have people that are in all different phases of their careers at the same time. And it is likely that you're going to have association members come in that only need certification to fully meet the criteria of the job that they either want to get or have. But then once they get further in their career, they're going to hit a ceiling and they may or may not be able to reach that, the outcomes they're looking for without a full degree program. And I think that's the reality. I think higher education is shifting. We're seeing schools start to offer courses and credentialing, and workforce Pell that's hitting in July will substantively change how associations are able to work with institutions to help, meet the need without really requiring a full degree program. But I think the challenge is like, how do you meet all of your association members' need with just one solution?
Yeah, well said. Can you just take a minute and talk about that workforce Pell that you talked about? Just, give us a thumbnail of it and why it's important, because I think it's right. It's important for people to realize what it is.
Sure. I just came back from a conference last week and everyone was talking about workforce Pell on the higher education side. So until now, the only way that an adult can receive Pell eligibility has traditionally been a way that an 18-year-old would go to college. They use their parents' information, they apply for federal financial aid, and then based off their parents' income, they typically will or will not qualify to receive Pell. And that essentially is money that goes towards their education for their degree program that they don't have to pay back. And so, up until now, if an adult that is working that wants to go and seek, you know, increased education, they haven't been able to do that with Workforce Pell. Their employer may be willing to pay for it, but they haven't had any federal financial aid that they can use to pay for it. And so this is the first time that now adults will be able to qualify for that. And so what we're going to see is a ton of institutions across the US are going to roll out credentials. The biggest change is that now they don't have to take a full degree program to qualify for financial aid. They just need to take courses and certificates, and it's probably going to be closer to $2,000 or $3,000 that they can actually apply towards that course or towards that certification, and they won't have any out-of-pocket cost.
That's huge.
It is huge.
That's huge. So, but talk about it. So to qualify for that, the place that you go for the education itself, does it need to be at some institution that's qualified or certified or whatever it might be, for the grant itself, or how do they determine what the right education is to get the grant?
It does. And so they're still doing rulemaking on it, even though it's going to start in July. There's been, I think, a lot of hiccups along the way as they've rolled this out or they've planned to roll it out. So we still are waiting for their guidance. They're still in like this Q&A period just ended. But it looks like this first round of Workforce Pell that starts on July 1st of this year is only going to qualify if they are an institution that's already offering financial aid, so a regionally accredited institution, or an institution that is for profit or nonprofit that does some federal financial aid already.
And that can apply to an online institution though, or online courses. It doesn't have to be in person, or
Yeah, online is in. The decisions about which program, so there's a whole bunch of criteria the institution has to meet. It is going to be rolled out on a state by state basis, though. And
oh,
so
interesting.
every state and their workforce boards will have an opportunity to tell their institutions in their state what programs they see as economically viable to the progress of their state. And then those particular programs will be the ones that get
Okay.
accepted.
Okay. And let's just talk about EDUTrust a little bit now. Let's tie that in. if you're
Yeah.
working with an association and saying,
Mm.
yes, we're here to help provide this higher education, who helps facilitate the whole thing around this Pell thing? And just talk a little bit about the logistics. And an association says, I like what EDUTrust is doing. Where does what you do start and end, and what the association has to do to work with
Sure.
EDUTrust?
That's a good question. So some of this is still getting fleshed out, because it hasn't started yet and the rules aren't completely set. But the way that, it looks like the way this is going to roll out is that an association has a group of members that would benefit from a particular type of education, um, typically delivered in weeks. Um, they would want to look at big like groups or buckets of roles that are a part of the association that need this support. And I think, the way that a lot of corporate entities and associations are mapping this is by looking at the job descriptions that are out there for open roles and identifying the skill sets that are
Mm,
needed and looking for those gaps. And that's still 10 years later how we're trying to solve this gap is what do your association members have in terms of skills and experience, and then mapping that to what the actual open job descriptions are showing as skills that are needed. So you're solving for that gap between where your association members are and what the open roles are requiring of them. And then mapping that to what an institution can offer your members. And so what an association would need to do is to provide us with those, we have, representatives in HR that are level one,
hmm.
and we want to help them move to level two. And so we're able as a company to go out and work with our partners who are, running programs for adults to help roll out those actual like those credentialing programs. And then it should be that easy. I mean, the association will be responsible for marketing the program, but the pathways are developed and built out at the institution with our help. And then we're really just pushing your association members that are interested through to a form where they indicate they're interested. And then we push that information directly to to the institution, and the university would reach out and support them in enrolling.
Yeah, that's great. Well said. And so it sounds like what you're saying is the association needs to get the word out that this is a benefit in addition to
Mhm.
whatever other things they do. And uh but from that moment, let's just call it a link, you know,
Mhm.
the individual member saying that speaks to me because I'm at level one and I want to go to level two, and this is
Right.
a program. From that moment beyond, though, this isn't EduTrust and your partners taking things from there and working with the individual member to get them enrolled, et cetera, right? But at the
Yep.
same time, you're working with the association, reporting back on who's come through or how many people have come through, and they're able to get sort of an ROI on what that effort worked out for them, right?
Yeah. And that's another thing with Workforce Pell that you just made me think of is that institutions have to have 70% of the graduates of of the programs that they take under Workforce Pell within 6 months they have to be employed in that area. And
Hmm.
so for the first time we're seeing that accountability shift onto the institution because they also have big data gaps. They're responsible for not only offering your members that credential, but then they also have to be work like it has to have real outcomes.
Yeah, that's accountability that probably wasn't always there, right?
Right. And so we're going to see how institutions are able to shift. Some will be able to shift and provide that type of data
Yeah.
back to the state, but others may not. And so the
Hmm.
ones that are able to actually have that deep infrastructure and drive real outcomes are the ones that you're going to see these programs come from. So that's the exciting part.
It's very exciting. If I'm listening and I'm an association education and programs person, what what's a good fit association? What are the if I'm looking, at my type of membership and the type of industry I'm in, what industries are really a good fit for what EduTrust does? let's just talk about that specifically. Which ones are a great fit?
Sure. So our benefit currently reaches about 15 million adults across the US. About 70% of those adults are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. They are, married with families and jobs that they can't just afford to leave. And so they're working adults. So about 70% of them will also not have completed their degree. And so our programs are typically built out around that assumption that about 70% of the people that we serve are going to want to use our programs to complete their undergraduate degree. Now, there's about 30% of them because we serve the union or the member and their entire family. So we're also looking at advanced degree programs, advanced masters in education and nursing and healthcare and
Mm,
all these other high demand and niche program areas because we know
yeah,
that, the member and their family members are going to want to look at, closing those gaps and looking for outcomes.
that's great. That's awesome. I want to just talk a little bit about the future and what you think associations need to be thinking about around their benefits and education into the future a little bit.
Um, I mean, I feel like it's a little bit of a call to action for associations, right? Like they associations really have a unique opportunity to selflessly fill that gap, right? And really change adult students' lives because employers are always going to come from a place of somewhat self-interest, right? Like they want better employees and higher margins. And, there are good reasons employers send their students to school too, but associations can really look at this problem holistically and help them with an area of focus really move an entire part of the industry forward.
That's
No one
good.
else is stepping into that gap. There's
Yeah.
no one doing this. Like no one's coming to save you. But I really think that associations, especially with seeing workforce Pell shift, they're they're in a really unique position to help roll this out in a way that isn't, helping hundreds of thousands of people at a time. I mean, it is, but we're really having to solve this on a one-to-one basis for people.
Yeah, so talk about that just a little bit, the one-to-one versus being able to scale it and
Sure.
what scaling even really might mean for an association.
Yeah, I think that's why this has proven to be hard work over the last several decades, keeping education moving at the same pace as industry. Because as adults with busy lives and families and real time-based needs, like people each have individual issues with being able to move to the next phase of their career. And some of that takes coaching on a one-to-one basis. In fact, on our actual like websites that we bring association members to, we provide them with an option that says, don't know what program I want, like not sure what to do next. And that requires a one-to-one coaching discussion to help them understand what the options are in the benefit so that they can go and pursue a program that feels the most workable for them individually.
Yeah, it's cool. If let's say it's a nursing association, there's a bunch of those,
Yeah.
and they're just doing their own thing right now. This advanced degree idea is appealing to them.
Hmm.
Um, what does, I mean, I think you touched on this just a little bit, but just this idea of like, I don't know what exactly my next step would be.
Hmm.
Like, what's the immediate next step somebody can be to go, I want to do that?
So once we have an agreement with an association to start member offering their benefit, the next steps are for us to really look at what the needs of their programs are and map them to the hundreds of academic programs that we offer. And so for a nursing, we may need to talk to actual employers to get a really good sense of what the members need. And so typically, an association will stand up a few hundred programs without really requiring any effort on their end. We're doing the majority of the work in standing up the benefit. And so the way that it would work is that the association, once we have an agreement, can market the benefit. Typically, it's by email once or twice a month, offering this education benefit to their members. When an association member gets the email, they click from the email, they go to a microsite, which has a three-step form on it and some information about the schools and the programs in their network. So at this point, it's still an association experience, but it's our microsite. They complete this three-step form, and then they are sent directly out to the institution so that their trained admissions staff can talk with the prospective student immediately and make sure that they understand the program and take a look at the financial side of how they'll pay for it, help them,
Mm,
apply for scholarships and all of those types of things that are part of that more traditional, onboarding. And that's another thing that I think is really important that associations can miss is that you really have to have your finger on the type of like student experience that the colleges are offering. And so we secret shop our institutions to make sure that they're having an exceptional experience
mm.
in the admissions process and beyond.
Yeah, smart, smart. There's an expectation here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the reason why association members pursue this typically through their association is because they have a ton of trust for their association. And we see that as a really big responsibility to really be responsive to that trust. And because, we take that really seriously because we're essentially representing your association.
Jen, thank you so much for the great insights today. I think we covered a ton of ground, and I think any association listening today is going to get a lot out of it. It's food for thought, and like we said, it's you're contributing to the industry. You're pulling in members in a way that you're allowing them to get past whatever ceiling they may be at, go from tier one to tier two in their career, whatever it might be. So hugely insightful. So thanks a lot for chatting about it.
Awesome. Yep. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.